I'm glad we started off with a land acknowledgement. Hey? Damn Whitey. They didn't even have anybody to introduce me, so I was like waiting. I saw a guy in the hallway. Am I getting introduced? They said, "You're on your own, pal." I was like, great. What that means, an Indian named Custer. So how the hell does that happen? I was the flavor of the month in the Regina Leader Post, and when I was put up for adoption, and they used to put us in the newspapers, and so that's what I like to call the, because I was a feature baby, the newspapers back in the day. But what kid doesn't love ice cream? Hey, I love ice cream. In fact, I think one of my favorite flavors has got to be the cherry ice cream. You know, what they put the little candied maraschino cherries in. I think that's got to be my favorite, right? But the thing about this kind of scoop is I didn't ask to become a flavor, especially not one of my own choosing. It's an official policy called AIM, Adopt Indian and Métis. So the government, they were the purveyors of the ice cream, and my parents were, in a weird way, kind of like the customers. My birth name, which is even funnier than Custer, if it could get any funnier, was actually Basil Sutherland. That was my birth name, Basil Sutherland. Basil. Like, isn't that what you use in cooking, right? Isn't it an herb? And then, and Sutherland. What the hell? An Indian named Sutherland? That's Scottish. It's Scottish. Can you imagine that? A Scottish Indian, right? Sutherland, right? Angus, are you going to sign treaty? Nah, they probably just want to steal the land and our women. I tell you, if they try anything on me, John, I'll slip them a treat. That's a promise from me to you. When we signed treaty, the Indian agents of the day, they couldn't pronounce our names in Cree, or Blackfoot, or Salish, or Ojibwe, or Mi'kmaq, right? They didn't know how to pronounce them, let alone spell them, so they gave us their European names, hence Sutherland. I had a good buddy, his name was Paul, just like me. When I was in university, I finally wanted to find my biological family. And my white mom and dad, they said, "Hey, if you need help with that, do you know who handled your adoption?" And I had no clue. And guess who it was? It was Paul's parents. They were both social workers for the government of Saskatchewan, Child and Family Services. They were the ones who handled my adoption. So isn't that weird, right? They had adopted, so Paul and his sister, okay, biological sister, and then two brothers and a sister, but they were indigenous. They were part of the scoop. They had their own three scoops. And I'll never forget the brother. Oh God, he was a big dude. Big, intimidating looking Indian. And he wound up in and out of jail for years. The sister, the daughter, the indigenous one, she became a street prostitute. And then the youngest one, and Dan, he was a cute kid. He was younger than I, and he wound up running with native gangs. Here is the weirder thing. So people go, "But you know what, Paul? You're normal." I was like, what the F does that mean? My old man, he built us, my brother and I, he built us a basketball hoop behind the garage in the back alley. And so I see this little solitary figure, and they'd be stopping at the garbage cans and rooting through the garbage. And those poor guys faced a lot of racism, you know, and usually by white guys driving by in their cars, and they'd yell something, "You fucking Indian, get a job, lazy," right? But they do it from the safety of their vehicle, and then they drive away. Real tough. But guess what? Those guys were the nicest guys to me, because they would come up to me, and because I was a kid, and they were grown men, they'd always come up to me, and they'd always shake my hand. right? And that's a real thing in Indian country. You always shake hands with people. And it's just a sign of respect. They're acknowledging you. And there was this one guy in particular, he patted me on the head and he'd say, "Hey, little brother, how are you?" So one day, I was talking with that guy, shooting hoops, and he came up, and we were chit-chatting, and my white mom came out from around the garage, and she was a very polite lady, okay? And she was very nice most of the time, and she just kind of came up with a smile, but she kind of grabbed my arm a little bit with a little force, and she goes, "Come on, Paul." And we went in the backyard, and I was like, "What the hell," you know? And she goes, "Don't talk to him, he's dirty." He was me, and I was him. So what a mind job that does on a kid. Her understanding of Native people was what she grew up seeing and how white people treated Native people, because there was a lot of bottle pickers. She didn't know any better. It's what we call ignorance. She simply just did not know. But I was in my 30s at that time, and that's when things go sideways for this people, survivors of the scoop, and that's why. And I ended up talking to Sheila for 2 hours in that waiting room that first time, and I became one of her clients. And she told me that most of her clients were survivors from the scoop, and she said everything's fine until you hit your 30s, things start coming out sideways. And that's what was happening to me, ironically enough, because guys, back in the day, holy shit, could I drink? And damn, I was all pro. I could pound double dark and dirties all day, all night. And by the end of the night, I'd still be like this. And people go, "Holy shit, you're still standing, you're still making sense." I was like, "Yeah, right." Stupid, right? But the drinking was like getting like worse and worse. And that's what happens. And then I'm drinking a lot, I'm partying all the time, I think I'm just having fun. And one of the guys, one of my good buddies, we're not so tight anymore for good reasons. Whenever him and his buddy Dean, okay, I'm not going to mention my real friend's name, but his buddy Dean, whenever Dean showed up, that meant they called Tim. Tim was the coke dealer, and he was a little Vietnamese guy, okay, and he drove around. I shouldn't be laughing. It's kind of funny. He drove around in his family's minivan, and he delivered cocaine to whoever wanted some blow, right? And these guys would always go, "Dean, what are you going to Dean? Hey, Paul, come on, have a line. I'm like, no, don't touch that, no. And then finally one day, "Yeah, all right." Best drug ever. And it destroyed everything in my life. Even though I was working at the time, people didn't know. I had a really good constitution. So a lot of people had no idea that I'd been up all night and then show up at work and produce. Who am I? That's why I always ask myself. And it's still a work in progress. So am I Paul? Am I Basil? Am I Smoker the Horse? Am I Almighty Voice? Blackfoot. They call it the Nitsitapi. James, do I have that? Yeah, which means real people, right? Human being. That's how I look at myself. So guys, that about does it. Thanks a lot. I'm going to go get some ice cream.